Perfect. And we're recording.
Okay, fantastic. Well, this is wonderful. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you all so much for coming to our diverse destinations presentation. I say coming to, but our online version. And we're so happy to have you here. There's actually going to be 3 of us all together speaking, which I will be explaining just a tiny bit in a moment here. But I'll be starting off. And I think we're just going to, as I mentioned, just dive right in, guys, if everybody's cool. All right, perfect. Well, here we are starting on the first slide of my portion of the presentation. So, as I mentioned, we are so happy that you're here today and grateful that you've come to our session. My name is Robin White, and I'm the Vancouver Island Community Advisor for Technology for Living. And I'm really excited to share my part of this 3-person presentation called Diverse Destinations Travel with Confidence. Now, at TFL, as many of you know, we set up and provide smart home technology for folks with disabilities in the province of BC. And so if that is something that sounds interesting to you and you weren't maybe aware of it too much, please feel free to ask me questions after the presentation. But before we go any further, I'd like to begin with our land acknowledgement. So the city of Victoria sits upon the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and of the Esquimalt and the Songhees and the Chianu nations and the Wasanich and the Sartlip, Pakwachin, Sawout, Sakem, Malahat, and Esquimalt nations, as well as the Lekwungen speaking people. And we at TFL would like to extend our appreciation for the opportunity to live and learn on their beautiful land. Now, we also want to recognize the entire province of BC and all of the First Nations that are in our beautiful province and recognize how grateful we are. So that is something that's just important for us to mention. And also that we actually work with First Nations folks from across the traditional and unceded territories, as I mentioned, covering all regions of BC. We really hope to create meaningful collaboration opportunities with local Indigenous communities who are keepers of our land, sea, and air. And we seek to ensure that British Columbians in all regions of the province can benefit from an inclusive, accessible province. The first part of today's presentation is a mix of my personal stories, practical tips, and inclusive strategies that I've gathered throughout my experiences traveling with a mobility device. And after I speak, world adventurer and global dominator, Ian Price, and the fearless and fabulous Monica Gartner will also be sharing her inspiring adventures and incredible travel experiences. So whether you're someone who travels with a disability or you support folks who do, my hope is that you'll leave today feeling more informed, more encouraged, and more confident. Okie dokie. Alrighty, guys, I'm just making sure that we're kind of on track here. Why I travel is the slide that should be showing up for you. Travel has always been more than just a change of scenery for me. It's a chance to reclaim independence, and I really mean that. Getting out into the world, even when it takes planning and support, helps me connect with new people and places in a way that feels energizing and deeply human. There are challenges, but for me, saying yes to life means being open to experiences, even if they push me outside my comfort zone. Whether it's a small local getaway or a big trip across the continent, I travel to feel free, to feel inspired, and to remind myself that life is full of possibilities. I want to take a moment here to be honest about the barriers that disabled travelers face. It's not just about ramps and doorways. It's the uncertainty and the lack of accurate information and the emotional toll of kind of having to fight sometimes for basic access. Airports can be chaotic, transit can be unreliable, and too often accessibility is an afterthought instead of a priority. It can be exhausting. And sometimes it really makes you wonder if the trip is actually worth it. But this is also why I plan, advocate, and share my experiences. Because the more we talk about the real challenges, the more we can push for real change. Regarding this photo, New York City has always been a favorite place of mine. Really, truly, since the very first time I visited there 33 years ago. And here I am at the 9/11 Memorial, sitting in front of one of the large rectangular reflecting pools located in the exact building footprints of one of the two towers that was destroyed that day. Now, I never travel alone, even when it looks like maybe I do. Behind every trip is a network of people who help make it possible. For me, that includes care assistants, friends, family, and sometimes total strangers who offer help along the way. Traveling with a disability requires trust and communication. Whether it's someone helping me get through a tight airport connection or joining me on a spontaneous detour, I rely on support in a way that's deeply collaborative. Now, these people are more than just helpers. They are part of the adventure. They make the challenges easier and the fun moments even better. And every trip I've taken is full of shared stories I'll never forget. Now, here I am with my mom and aunt at a beautiful flower shop at the Chelsea Market in New York City last year. What a trip it was. Sometimes it's the smallest things that can make the biggest difference when you're traveling with a disability. Like when a hotel room matches the accessibility description online, or when staff go out of their way to make you feel welcome without making a big deal about it. It could be a ramp where you didn't expect one, or a clean and spacious washroom, or somebody simply asking, "How can I help?" instead of assuming. These moments might seem minor, but they can turn a stressful day into a smooth one. And they remind me that accessibility doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be considered. And when it is, it makes a huge difference. Now, these photos were taken during a whale watching tour in Victoria, BC. And they show you just how powerful it is when inclusion is built in from the start. Everything about this experience made it possible for me to feel safe, supported, and fully immersed in nature. From the portable ramp to the calm, capable staff, I was able to get on board without stress and settle in to enjoy something I love, being on the water, feeling the fresh air, and scanning the horizon for wildlife. When you use a mobility device, connecting with nature can sometimes feel a bit out of reach, but not this time. I didn't just feel accommodated, I felt included. This wasn't just a boat ride, it was access to something joyful and expansive. That's what thoughtful accessibility makes possible. Now, this picture was taken at the Hotel Zed in Tofino. They have this great retro disco room, complete with a glitter ball and light up floor. Now, this moment might not look like sort of disability travel strategy, but for me, it absolutely is. It's about choosing to lean into joy when the opportunity arises. And that's the thing. When you travel with a disability, You have to plan a fair bit, as we've been chatting about, the logistics, the accessibility, the backup plans, but it's just as important to plan to have fun. I also find that bringing a good attitude, being kind to staff, thanking folks, showing up with a smile, it really tends to open doors, literally and figuratively. And things won't always go perfectly, but when you can say yes to something spontaneous or silly or a little bit joyful, like dancing under a disco ball, it's absolutely worth it. All righty. Planning, right. All right. Well, this one here, guys. Just wanting to make sure this is Foods of New York Tours. It was taken during one of the highlights of my most recent trip to New York City, an absolutely fantastic food tour through Greenwich Village. And the food was amazing. The guide was hilarious, and the whole experience was so well done. But here's the thing. I wouldn't have known about it was even possible for me unless I did the work first. I had to call a few different food tour companies to find out whether any of them were wheelchair accessible. And spoiler alert, unfortunately, half of them weren't, but this one was, and I'm so glad I asked. That is part of traveling with a disability. You have to be your own advocate. If you don't see accessibility info listed, it doesn't automatically mean it's a no. It just means you have to dig a little bit deeper. It can be frustrating, but when the experience turns out like this great, it's absolutely worth the effort. Now, this photo might look quiet and simple. Just me, my feet up, a beautiful pup by my side, and that gorgeous West Coast mist. But it represents something really important to me as a disabled traveler. Rest is not a luxury. I really think it's a key part of making travel enjoyable and sustainable. When I'm planning a trip, I do often build in downtime because, I'm busy. I love going to New York and other big cities. And, I can get, I don't know, just a little hectic if I'm not careful. So I try not to do too much in one day. I try to find places that are both accessible and peaceful, where I can actually relax and take it all in. When I'm in the city, that often looks like having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine at a restaurant, on the street, or somewhere that I can comfortably watch the world go by. Accessibility, as I've mentioned, is not just about the ramps and the bathrooms. It's about having the freedom to pause, to breathe, and to enjoy. And honestly, these quiet moments with a sweet doggy at my knee and the ocean in front of me, they're the ones I remember just as much as the big events. Now, this photo was taken on top of the Malahat Skywalk, an incredible fully accessible attraction here on Vancouver Island. Now, what made it so special wasn't just the view, although the view was spectacular, but it was the fact that I didn't have to ask for anything special. I didn't have to call ahead, request access, or explain my needs. The entire experience, from the parking lot to the top of the skywalk, was set up to welcome everybody, whether a person required a mobility device or not. When inclusion is built into the design, it creates this quiet sense of belonging and dignity. You're not the exception. You're not the extra step. You're just there, just enjoying it like everyone else. And I just can't overstate how meaningful that is. Following the inclusive experience at the Malahat Skywalk, I was excited to discover another local travel option that's putting accessibility front and center, and that's the new Hello Ferry. This high-speed passenger ferry connects downtown Vancouver and downtown Nanaimo in just over an hour. Hello has taken meaningful steps to support accessible travel. Ramp boarding allows smooth and easy access for wheelchair users. There's accessible bathrooms available on board and designated secure areas let passengers in their chairs remain in their mobility device for the entire journey if they wish, or not. They don't have to either. They can maybe have a seat in one of the chairs. But it's lovely to have the choice. And it's just heartening to see these new transportation services embracing accessibility from day one, setting a strong example for what inclusive travel should look like. Now, I love this slide. It's a reminder again that accessible travel doesn't have to mean sitting on the sidelines. These are just a few snapshots of me doing what I love: exploring cities, visiting attractions, seeing live sports, eating amazing food, and spending time outdoors. One of the most common misconceptions is that accessibility means limited options. But in reality, accessibility means possibility. It opens the doors to all kinds of experiences, some relaxing, some thrilling, some deeply meaningful. The key is figuring out what works for you and not being afraid to try new things, even if it means, a little more planning or asking questions ahead of time. Because honestly, a scooter does not stop me from living a full, bold, and joyful life. It's what makes it possible. Something I've learned over and over again while traveling is that attitude and communication really matter. I always try to lead with a smile, not because everything's perfect, but because I found that kindness, I should say, sorry guys, kindness opens doors, as I mentioned, literally and figuratively. Whether I'm dealing with airline staff, hotel reception, or restaurant servers, I always try to engage a little bit with people. Well, I shouldn't say always, but often. I have a little laugh where I can, and I just connect human to human. It doesn't fix everything. I still face barriers, but it helps. People are often more willing to help when you treat them with warmth. And honestly, it makes the experience better for me too. That sense of connection and mutual respect is what makes travel feel rich and not just accessible. Now, let's talk about something here. Air travel can be challenging for anyone, but for those of us with disabilities, especially mobility disabilities, it comes with a whole different layer of stress and uncertainty. Booking a flight isn't just about picking a time and a seat. It's about making phone calls to arrange assistance, hoping that request is actually communicated to the airline staff, and showing up extra early so you can board first. And when something does go wrong, like your device becomes damaged or delayed, it's not just inconvenient. It can completely derail your plans. I mean, for those of us who use mobility devices and fly, no real accommodation exists once you're actually on board. And we all can admit that there is a serious gap here. And it's one that has a direct impact on our health, our dignity, and our ability to travel like everyone else. Now, here it is, truly the elephant in the room, or more accurately, the elephant that couldn't possibly fit in the airplane bathroom, or even just like a normal person, it's tight. Throw an accessible device in there and it changes. So really, this is what we're working with: a space barely wide enough for a standing person, let alone somebody using, as I mentioned, a mobility device. And I mean, it's a serious problem. For me and so many other travelers with disabilities, airplane bathrooms are completely unusable. And because of that, I've had to build my entire travel day around the issue. In my personal situation, I have to restrict my fluids starting the day before the flight and limit myself to shorter flights only. And unfortunately, this sets me up for something that nobody wants while on vacation: a UTI. It's physically uncomfortable, it's mentally taxing, and it's completely avoidable if better accessibility were in place. So this isn't just about luxury. It's about basic dignity and health. Uh, I try to keep my sense of humor, hence the kind of stressed out cartoon elephant. But this is an area of travel where change is urgently needed. One of the biggest things I've learned from traveling with a disability, sorry about that. Sorry about that. One of the biggest things I've learned from traveling with a disability is that great experiences don't just happen, they are built through planning. Take my New York City food tour, for example. I didn't just book online and hope for the best. I actually called them and asked if any of their tours were accessible. The person who I spoke to hadn't actually been asked that question very often, but they were very kind and they looked into it. And it turned out that, yes, there were actually 2 tours that were accessible. They just didn't get promoted on the information online. But anyway, if I hadn't, sorry guys, how embarrassing. Trying to turn off my, that's the only one thing I forgot to do. There we go. Anyways, yeah, so if I hadn't spoken to that one person, I wouldn't have found out that there were 2 tours that I could have taken, which I did, and they were fantastic. So, planning isn't just about logistics. For me, it can also mean preventative, if you will, because sometimes I'll ask, most times I'll ask my doctor for a just in case prescription for a UTI to bring with me on my trip, because I have had them often enough and I know when one is starting. But it's not always easy to convince a doctor. But when they do provide it, it gives me real peace of mind. I can fill it, pack it, and I know I'm ready to handle it if needed, especially on a longer trip. So yes, planning can take a little energy. Sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes an email, sometimes even a little bit of a medical ask. But that effort allows me to travel with confidence and enjoy the moment that I can get there. When I get there, I should say. All righty. Well, this is our final slide, and I want to sincerely thank you for joining me today. I hope my part of Diverse Destinations presentation has sparked ideas and helped you feel more confident and inspired about accessible travel. So here are just a few parting thoughts. Planning ahead is important, especially when traveling with mobility device, but don't forget to leave space for spontaneity and joy. Pack smart, make sure you have the essentials like your meds, your chargers, and your devices in good working order. And a few snacks never hurts either. And don't hesitate to offer businesses polite and constructive feedback when you're out on the trail, because that's really how things get better. Also, don't forget, as a fellow traveler with a disability, you represent all of us. So do it with grace. That's really also how things get better. And if you're looking for more travel insights or peer experiences, I highly recommend these resources. Curb Free with Corey Lee is a wonderful blog by a world traveling wheelchair user, an American fellow. Ewan's Guide is full of reviews by and for disabled travelers, and this website is out of Scotland, so they're really great with covering the UK. And then there's also Hello BC Accessibility, a great place to start for local trip planning here in BC. I also have my own little personal website called Girl About Town, Accessible Victoria, and I highlight businesses that prioritize accessibility here in the city of Victoria and a little bit beyond. Thank you again so much. It's truly been a pleasure sharing this with you, and I hope you leave today feeling a little bit more empowered to explore the world on your own terms, and also the world, but also your backyard. You know what I mean? Sometimes it doesn't have to be anything too wild and crazy to be enjoyable. Anywho, thank you again all so much. And I am going to pass things over to Ian next.
Hey, thanks, Robin. Okay.
Thank you. All right.
a great presentation. One moment as I switch over screens.
Yeah,
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that looks great.
Okay, let's get started. So, hello everyone. My name is Ian Price. I live in Kelowna, British Columbia, and I'm 42 years old, and I have spinal muscular atrophy type 2, which is a progressive neuromuscular condition that I've had since birth. I use a ventilator, and I'm also unable to eat or drink by mouth. So I have a feeding tube, so I'm pretty high maintenance, but that hasn't stopped me from traveling the world. I've been fortunate enough to visit 16 countries so far, and I'm really excited. Well, actually, in a couple of days here, I'm going on a road trip, and then at the end of the month, or sorry, end of the year in October, I'm going to Dubai. So that's going to be the highlight for my year because I've never been, and it looks like the future. So I'm really excited about that. So I work with Robin at Technology for Living. I'm the peer program manager, and I also have my own company, I Can Resource Group, where we provide consulting services for accessible travel and assistive technology. So from a very young age, my parents have always been extremely supportive of getting out and being adventurous. And here's some photos from way back when. That's actually my very first power wheelchair. And I took it everywhere. As a kid, I thought I was indestructible in my tank of a chair. And we went on such great adventures. And sometimes, I would push it a little bit too hard. I have been prone to tip a chair or two, but that's all about being a kid and pushing yourself and really seeing the world. And that passion has stuck with me ever since. I love being outside. I love camping, or nowadays it's more cabins. But regardless, I just like seeing and trying new things, and that has that passion has taken me all over the world for sure. So when I was around 15, 16 years old, I started having difficulty breathing, and I became ventilator dependent. And so that picture on the right, that bottom giant microwave looking device, that's my very first ventilator. And I was a little bit concerned because it weighed so much. It weighed 25 pounds, and it only had a 30-minute internal battery. So you can imagine how limiting that would be. But now, fortunately, technology has advanced. The device sitting on top of it is my brand new ventilator. And this only weighs just over 5 pounds. And the best part is that it has two internal batteries for a total of 8 hours, but it can also plug in to my wheelchair for pretty much unlimited power. And then also when I'm on an airplane, I have an external battery that I can plug into it to give me about an extra 13 hours. So I have lots of options now. I really don't feel like the ventilator is that much of a barrier. So, as I mentioned before, I am very high maintenance. I bring so much stuff with me when I travel. Starting from left to right, I have my two ventilators. Always make sure to bring a backup in case there's a failure. I have run into that issue when I first started traveling. And then in the top center is my shipping container for my wheelchair, which I'll speak about a bit later. Two suction machines for because I'm unable to swallow. And then in the bottom left is my shower chair and commode. And the cool thing about it is that it disassembles and fits into a suitcase. Again, because I can't eat, I have a feeding pump and a heck of a lot of food. So for a 2-week trip, I have to bring 48 cans of Jevity, which is my meal supplement, which is an entire suitcase. So that's something that I definitely have to plan ahead, making sure I have all of my supplies with me, and then of course the most important thing is my power wheelchair, my wheelchair charger, and some ramps. Oh, here we go. So this is my van, and again, because I bring so much stuff, I had to be a bit creative, and so we removed the passenger seat, and now we have room for all of my gear and of course my caregivers' gear as well. So traveling doesn't mean, or it doesn't have to mean hopping on an airplane. It can mean driving around British Columbia or like even the island. I absolutely love visiting the island. I'll actually be there at the end of the month. And one of my favorite places on the island is, I think it's around Campbell River. And it's the Oyster Bay Resort. And I found this online planning a trip to my cousin's wedding, and it was wonderful. It was so unique that I much rather stay somewhere like this that's fully accessible than a hotel room if I can.
Yeah.
Also, a place that I absolutely love is Eager Lake Camp. And this is in Summerland in the Okanagan. And the really cool thing about it is that not only are there 3 cabins, which are fully accessible, but they also have a pathway from the cabins down to the private lake, which is paved. And that is a game changer for somebody like myself who uses a power wheelchair, because more often than not, when I go camping, it's in the bush and there's dirt and gravel everywhere, and it's really hard to navigate. So that was a real treat for me the first time I went here. And then also just the little things, like for those who are unable to transfer themselves, having a ceiling lift already built in to the cabins, it's a huge bonus. And then for those that love going to music festivals like myself, last year my friends and I went to Bass Coast, which is in Merritt. And the really cool thing about Bass Coast is that they have these accessible platforms at most of the stages, which was really refreshing, because usually when I go to a concert or a festival, I'm looking at everybody's butts, and it was really nice to actually be able to see over the crowd and see my friend who is the DJ on stage. So again, if you want to kick it up a notch and travel outside of the province or the country, one of my first trips was going to Mexico, and this is many years ago. And something that we found, which was a barrier, was that it was like we had a wheelchair accessible van from the airport to the all-inclusive resort. But once we arrived there, we weren't able to rent a van that could accommodate wheelchair to help, do some exploring. So I met some friends, and they said, "Don't worry, Ian, we'll hook you up." And the next day, they showed up with this van that they pulled the seats out of, and they ripped off a piece of their neighbor's fence and made a ramp for me, and it was wonderful. It was it was such a cool experience. We traveled all over, like Cancun and Playa del Carmen and surrounding area, and it was just so neat to see how welcoming they were and how supportive and just the ingenuity. Back about 5 years ago, I went on the trip of a lifetime, and I explored Southeast Asia. We were gone for around a month, and we went to Thailand, Cambodia, and Japan. And one of the coolest things that I never thought I would be able to experience was in Thailand. They had a riverboat that was accessible. And that was so cool. I absolutely loved it. Hanging out by the river every day was just shocking to me. It was really something that I had dreamed about, because I love adventure. I love trying new things, and with a bit of research, well, a heck of a lot of research, I was able to find this hidden gem. So speaking of research, it usually takes me for a big trip about 6 months, maybe up to a year, to plan my trip. And back in the day, it was a lot more challenging because frankly there weren't as many people with disabilities showcasing their success stories. But nowadays there are so many different resources or online resources available that you can choose from. Many of them are free, and they can really show you the tips and tricks or tricks rather, of how to plan a successful vacation. Because when you're planning it, I won't lie, it can be a little bit overwhelming at times and frustrating because you're constantly hitting these roadblocks of no, that's not accessible. This isn't gonna work. How am I gonna like make this safe and enjoyable? But don't be discouraged. There really are a ton of groups out there where you can post questions, and the community will help you. Okay, so for my wheelchair, I'm always paranoid that it's going to be damaged by the airlines, and unfortunately, this does happen more often than I'd like to admit. So my dad had a wonderful idea to design a shipping crate for it. And I've been using this same crate for over 20 years now. And yes, it is big and bulky. I do have to bring it to the airport. My caregiver assembles it, and as they transfer me into an airport chair, and then they forklift it into a shipping container. But just having that peace of mind that my chair will be intact when I arrive at my destination, it is worth the hassle. And many of the airports now have been supportive with holding onto the crate when we arrive at our destination. So that's been a huge bonus. For those that don't have a 100-pound wooden box for their chair, many of the airlines are now introducing the ULDs, or unit load devices. This is a photo provided to me by Air Canada. And this is a step in the right direction. I think it's so important to all of us that use power chairs to have that sense of security. And I'm really pleased that airlines are starting to provide options to provide that safety. Now, I don't want to get your hopes up. Not every airport has these so far. They are very limited. But if you are planning a trip, I highly recommend talking to the airline, speaking to people at the airport to figure out if this is an option for you. So for most of my traveling years, I've been sitting or purchasing economy tickets, and this is okay for shorter flights, but I'm noticing now as I get older that it's really hard on my body. And so for my upcoming trip to Dubai, I decided to purchase business class where I can actually lay down almost completely flat on the airplane, and this is going to make it much more durable, much more enjoyable for me to be on such a long flight, because after about an hour or two, I'm in pain, and if it's a 12-hour flight, it can be absolutely excruciating. So, as Robin mentioned, the washrooms are certainly not accessible. And so I see myself having two options. One, I could wear this very stylish diaper on the left here, and I have for many, many years on the airplane. But more recently, I decided to try using a condom catheter, and it's been a game changer for road trips. I haven't tried it on a flight yet, but I'm very excited too. And I think this is going to be the way for me to prevent getting UTIs. So when you arrive at your destination, there are so many options of how to get around nowadays. It can be accessible trains, boats, taxis, buses, you name it. But sometimes you have to be a little bit more creative. This picture on the bottom left is a photo of me in Cambodia with a friend of mine, and they didn't have an accessible vehicle that I could use. So what we did is a friend of mine that lives there had a ramp um, manufactured by a welder, and it worked absolutely great. We rented a standard van, pulled the seats out, and we were good to go. So be creative. Don't hesitate asking for questions and or asking questions and asking for help. I think that's the big thing is that don't be shy. Like if you're finding yourself hitting a roadblock, just ask, and more often than not, you'll be able to find the solution. So here are some travel tips. Number one, make a packing list. Make a giant packing list because especially the first time you travel, you're not going to know how much you're going to need of your supplies, and it's better to be over prepared than to try to find a medical supply case in another country. That just ruins your trip. It takes away from what you're supposed to be doing there, and that's having fun and adventure. Next up is voltage. Make sure that your devices, your wheelchair charger, your ventilator, your suction machine, your electric toothbrush, make sure that they work for the voltage of the country because many of them are different. Here, hold on 1 second, please. Okay, that's better. Next up is contact the airline well in advance. Don't just show up at the airport. You're gonna be horribly disappointed. Make sure that they fully understand what medical equipment you're bringing and the dimensions of your wheelchair, the weight of your wheelchair. Somebody I know was recently denied their power wheelchair because they had a restriction of 300 pounds and their wheelchair weighed 301, which is absolutely horrible. These things need to change, but to avoid these headaches, it's really good to be prepared. Also be or try to avoid layovers. Layovers are a huge pain in the butt, especially when you're traveling with a mobility device. So if you can purchase a direct flight, maybe it will be a little bit more expensive, but it will absolutely be worth it in the long run. Next up is yeah, your dimensions for your power chair again. For hotels and public transit and taxis and such. And make sure that you know what your wheelchair dimensions are, specifically the width and the length, and ask ahead. I've been very fortunate that over the years that I have done my due diligence and called ahead to every hotel, making sure the dimensions of their elevator, because you know what, there are certain hotel rooms and vehicles, wheelchair accessible vehicles that my chair just doesn't fit in, and that's the reality. Next up, make sure before you go that you know where the nearest hospital is. I've made that mistake where I was in Amsterdam, my ventilator broke. I was frantically trying to look through a guide to see where the nearest hospital was, and I ended up just wandering around in circles until eventually we found it. I'll never do that again. I want to know where they are so I can tell the taxi driver or if I'm on foot to be able to find it. And medical insurance. Make sure that you work with an insurance company that will actually accommodate your needs. I've had to research many insurers, many underwriters, just to find one that will work for me, being ventilator dependent. I've been using Tugo, Tugo, for a few years now, and they seem to be pretty good. And more importantly, or most importantly, at least, is have fun. Like honestly, you're not doing this to torture yourself. You're doing it to see the world, to explore and to enjoy yourself. And so that's why it's so important to be prepared, so that you're able to focus your time on the enjoyment, not just yourself, but your caregivers, to have a good time and hopefully want to do it again. Speaking of caregivers, I have to give a huge shout out to everyone who has ever traveled with me. I know I'm a lot of work, and we've had such great memories and built such strong friendships over the years. And so thank you to everybody that enables me to see the world, because I really couldn't do it without them. If you would like to learn more about my wild adventures, please check out my social media channels here, Rolling with Ian, and feel free to ask questions too. If there's a post I've made about a certain event I've attended or a country I've visited and you'd like to learn more, I would love to answer your questions. And finally, thank you to Technology for Living and the Victoria Foundation for the opportunity to present today. So, does anybody have any questions? Or should we jump right into Monica, our next guest?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we'll save the questions for the end of our presentations. What do you think, Ian?
Sure, I love it. Okay,
Okay.
okay. Give me a
Sounds
minute.
great.
And hi, Monica. Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna switch over to Monica's presentation.
Wonderful.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ian, for inviting me. Thank you, Robin.
Oh, so welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us, Monica. We're having a wonderful time and so excited to hear your presentation too.
Thank you.
It's great.
Okay, almost ready. Bear with me.
Sure. I hope you're all having a nice and warm day.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. It's amazing out there.
I've got my air purifier on. It's blowing out some cool air, so that's good.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So,
Fabulous.
yes. So, thanks again, Ian and Technology for Living and Robin for inviting me today. And today I'm going to talk about something that a lot of people haven't thought of, which is hosteling, which is very interesting. So we'll go to the next slide. And it's called Hosteling International now. And this is their logos. Canada has its own hosteling sign. It used to be called Youth Hosteling International, but they no longer have an age restriction. There weren't many places in the world that had age restrictions. I know of one which was Bavaria, but other than that, in Germany. But other than that, most of them didn't have an age restriction. And with the increase of prices these days, post COVID, people are looking for experiences at a little bit lower price. And what's great about Hosteling International is that, believe it or not, they are wheelchair accessible. So if we could go the next, here we go. Okay, so why hosteling? Well, like I said, they are wheelchair accessible. And when I first went to the youth hosteling, it was back in 1999, if you can believe that. And I did a lot of research. I mean, I know that Ian has stressed research, and I'm sure Robin did as well. And I'm going to stress research as well, because people just don't think like us. And what one person's wheelchair accessibility is versus another person can be two completely different things, especially if a country or an organization isn't familiar with it. But getting back to hosteling, as I said, they are budget friendly. They also are pretty secure. Even if you're sharing a room with other people, you can go to the front desk, and they usually have a lockup room where they'll take your luggage, and they'll lock it up, or even in the room will have a lockup. And what I quite often did in the hostels is I got a room with just the two of us. So there is a way that you can also say you want to have a room just for two people, and then you rent the whole room out, even if there's 4 beds in there. Of course, it will cost you a little bit more, but you might sleep better because you won't have a lot of snoring going on from other people you don't know. They're also pretty environmentally friendly, and they're very upbeat because traditionally there's a lot more younger people going to hostels. They have like a backpack and off they go. And you really get to see what the local culture is all about. Some hostels are off the beaten path, and some of them are quite on the beaten path, like right downtown. In Australia, I went to one which was right downtown, but other ones might be a little bit off the beaten path. So the next slide. So before you go, you want to ask yourself some questions like, where do you want to go, and what kinds of things do you like seeing? Do you like seeing museums? Do you like going to art shows? And how are you going to get around? How do you go from the airport to the location where you're going to stay? And is there public transit? Is it private transit? And how much is that going to cost? Is there any discounts for your attendant? In Germany, there were discounts for your caregivers. They get in free and you have to pay. And are the doorways wide enough? There was one place where I actually did go to a hotel, but I asked them, how wide is the doorway to the room and also in the bathroom? So they were really great in customer service because they literally got their measuring tape and they measured it out and came back and sent me an email note back. And now this is a kind of a bit of a strange one. Should I take a picture? I didn't cover all of this in this particular presentation, but I have actually gone to an Airbnb once. And when I was talking to the people, via email, I asked could they send a picture. And they did send a picture, and it did look like a room with 2 beds and a window with curtains and a dresser. We ended up booking there. They said they had a cat and they had a child. And when we got there, what we discovered was they had 2 cats, not one, and the window didn't have any curtains. It was string hanging on the curtains. And when they took the picture, it was like at night, so it looked like it was dark navy curtains with the cream stripe. And really what that was the dark sky with the cream curtains. So next time I thought, oh, for sugar beets, I'm going to have to ask for a daytime shot and a nighttime shot. And also the beds, they were air beds. They weren't even real mattresses. And then they tried to charge us after we left, saying that we damaged their air mattress. And we know we did not damage any mattress. But the thing is, we didn't want to leave a, what do you call it, a comment about their accommodations because it wasn't really good. They had like a 3-year-old that was crying till like midnight the first night when we had just gotten in and we were exhausted. It was hard. It was just craziness. And they even, this one wall had like a rifle on the wall. It was like creepy. Anyway, so you do get involved with some interesting experiences, but just remain calm, as they say, and carry on. Check out the city tourist website. I've even gone so far as to email the government tourist websites and ask them questions. Or you can also ask other friends, family members, people within the disabled community, if they've ever gone to a particular country, like Ian or myself. And also, I do like Ian introduced me to the wheelchair tracker. So far, I haven't used it yet, but I still have one, and I plan to use it because some countries are a little more riskier than other countries when it comes to losing medical equipment. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, it's important to have a cell phone that has some data. And you can get some really good deals in other countries. And you can order them while you're in your home country and then set it up just before you go. So it's a really good important thing to have for emergencies. Okay. Now in 1999 I decided to go to a few places. I went to about 17 different cities in about 7 different countries. And I was very fortunate. My uncle had a chauffeur, which he lent me for 3 weeks. And I took him with me because I asked him, I called up my uncle and I said, can I borrow your cell phone? Or they call it a handy in Germany. And he said, you can only borrow my cell phone if you take my chauffeur with you. Because he didn't want anything to go wrong with me. So which was brilliant because my caregiver was willing to get her international driver's license, but actually this was even better because we had no idea where we were going to go. I mean, I had pre-planned and I had pre-booked all of the hostels when I was in Canada, and I had purchased a hosteling book where it talks about the different amenities and the hostels, how far they are from the city attractions. It was really informative. But even though some of them had a wheelchair sign, I wasn't completely convinced. And so I managed to call most of them. And, actually, I called all of them, I think. And they all can speak English now. Like, that's the international language. So some of it was very broken English, but we were able to manage so I could book all the rooms ahead of time. And then the very first one we went to, which was actually in Salzburg, because in Berchtesgaden, the second one, I landed in Hanover. And we did take a look at Hanover, but Berchtesgaden, my uncle had the house there. And so we were able to stay in my uncle's house for a couple of days. And then Salzburg, I think it was our first, or one of the next, whichever one it was, one of the first youth hostels I went to, we discovered that it had stairs in the front of the building. And I had to go around the side of the building. Went inside, I was able to get to the front desk. And then I explained to them who I was, showed them my itinerary, and they said, oh, we have to change the room because we didn't realize you were in a wheelchair, even though I had told them. And they did something very brilliant, though. Back then, they had something called a fax machine. And they took my itinerary and they faxed everyone that was on my list, all the hostels, emphasizing this lady is in an electric wheelchair. She cannot go up steps. So that way, by the time we got to the next one, we didn't have to explain ourselves anymore. Everybody knew I was in a wheelchair. So that was brilliant. And for the most part, it worked pretty good. There were some dicey moments when I went into one hostel, and the elevator was so small that my caregiver had to stand on my wheelie bars in the back and tuck her tush in because the door just closed around me. It was no bigger than my wheelchair. It was hilarious. So for some larger electric wheelchairs or a scooter, you would not have gotten in. But we're talking quite a number of over 10 years later. So I'm sure things have changed even that much better. So if you could go to the next slide. So one of the countries I went to was in Austria, and the city was Vienna. It is absolutely a beautiful city. And I decided to splurge and take a bus ride, a tour around the entire city, which took like a few hours. I can't exactly remember what happened in my wheelchair, but we didn't take it with us. I believed it was just stayed at the bus depot, and I was carried up the stairs, put on a pillow, and then we went around the city. So we could see the major highlights because I think every few days we went to another city, so 2 or 3 days. And in 2 or 3 days, you can't see everything, but you can see the highlights. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so that's what we did in Vienna. And the next, Austria is, like I say, it's a very beautiful country. And probably one of the prettiest cities that I've ever been to would be Salzburg. And here, the top picture that you see is actually a cemetery. They have the most beautiful cemeteries I have ever seen in my entire life. As a matter of fact, some of them even had these wrought iron sticks in the ground with a little hoop on the end, and on the hanging off of that was like a little tea light. And apparently at night, they light all the candles. They're real candles. It wasn't electric. And it's absolutely a beautiful sight. And the one below that is in one of the beautiful palaces. And I just love the artistry in what they do with the crown molding and just the way the architecture and everything. But you're not allowed to take a picture directly at the art because of the sensitivity of the lights, the heat. They always have to keep that in balance. So I was a little bit naughty. And what I did is I took a picture through the mirror to see what was behind me so I could see the prettiness of it all. So that's what I did, a little bit sneaky. And the next slide. Venice, Italy. Another beautiful city that I highly recommend because it's sinking. Supposedly it's going to sink one day. And they have this great big this area, plaza, where people are walking and shopping and talking. And we had so many doves there. We threw some bread down, and there's Dahlia, my caregiver at the time, who was feeding a few doves. And it was such a hot day. It was like 28 or 30 degrees Celsius, and we were melting. And then all of a sudden, the rain came out of nowhere. It just poured. We had no umbrella, no jacket. I got like really wet. And then the sun came out, and I'm like, okay, gross. I feel a little gross now. I'm a little sticky from your hotness of the sweat, and then you kind of got a little bit of a mini shower. But yet it was a little refreshing at the same time because we were so hot. And I remember that night when we went to our hostel. Um, that night, it was 28 degrees at 8 o'clock at night. So it's still very, very hot. So highly recommend going. I'd like to go again because I did not get to go in the gondola. Yeah, isn't that what's called? That little boat that they go along the river. Um, the people I was with were too chicken to put me on them. And I was like, I really wanted to go. I was going to risk it because I thought it's so iconic, Venice, Italy. And I didn't get a chance to go. So maybe before I kick off on the planet, maybe I'll have to, I'm putting that back on my bucket list. Anyway, next one. Okay, so as I mentioned, in today's scenario, the facilities section on the website will say whether or not it's suitable for a person in a wheelchair. But I still recommend contacting them because it doesn't say electric or manual. It just says wheelchair. But what does that mean exactly? Children, adults, scooters, what? So I still recommend doing your research and contacting the facility and asking them or sending them, an email note so that you can know for sure whether or not it is accessible. And the next lovely slide is do's and don'ts. So as Ian mentioned, and I'm sure Robin mentioned, always make a plan as to where you want to go and what you want to do. And very important is the budget. Not only do you have to think of your own budget, you know, unfortunately, you also have to pay for your caregivers' uh, expenses as well. However, there is a nonprofit organization called the Canadian Assisted Travel Society, which I'll mention again later, which can help you for your caregivers' expenses while traveling. Not the labor expenses, but say transportation or accommodation and a meal stipend. Um, but those are things that it's just, unfortunately, is an expense that we have to incur, which is why it's so important to budget everything out. And what you need is very important. Do you need any backup things? For example, I have now an oxygen converter, and a good thing, I bought myself a battery to go along with that, actually, to go along with my BiPAP mask in the event there was a blackout. Well, it turns out the airline that I was traveling with would not allow me on the plane unless all of my equipment was one and a half, like it had to be a half the amount time more than the plane duration in the air. So if it was an 8-hour flight, uh, it would have to be 12 hours of oxygen in order for me to go on the plane, for an example. And if it was below that, there was a possibility they could deny me that flight on that day. So that was I lucked out because I did not realize, and at first they were going to say no because my oxygen converter only has 13 hours, but because I had the battery, it went a little bit past, and so therefore it was acceptable. So it was a little bit scary. They weren't going to allow it at first, but I kept explaining to them about the battery pack, and then it was okay. I never did use either one while I was on the plane, but it's a just in case scenario. Also, give your caregivers or family members a bit of a break. I try and plan time where they can do whatever they want. They still have to have a phone on them. We still have to have a way of communicating in case of an emergency. But I like to give them a break because even though it is my vacation, they are doing a lot for you, and you don't want them to get over exhausted and exasperated. And you want them to have a good time too because you might want to take them again in the future. Also, have fun. And I mean, that's why we're going. We go to have fun, explore the world, explore the culture, the new food, and meet new different people. And which I've discovered meeting new people has given me a complete realization we're all the same all over the world. We all want the same things in life. So it's really great. Try not to leave things to the last minute because that will get you in a little pickle if you leave things in the last minute. And I have made that mistake. We were going to Australia one time, and I was saying to my caregiver, oh, this was a different person. I should probably make arrangements for a cab to go to our youth hostel, our first one. And she's like, nah, it's an airport. They'll have lots of cabs, Monica. Don't worry about it. I should have listened to my gut. I didn't want to seem like I'm too pushy, but sometimes we've got to be assertive when our own gut tells us things. And I was right because I got to the airport. Nope, did you pre-book? You can only pre-book wheelchair accessible vehicles. So we had to take public transit, and it took us, I think, almost 2 hours to get to our hostel because of that. So that's a big lesson to learn. Also, don't forget your insurance. Things happen. I not only get medical, I insist that my caregiver gets medical, and travel interruption. Even if nothing happens to you, what if something happens to your caregiver's family member? And then what? You're hooped. So you've got to think of those things. And like I said, make a budget, but also when you make that budget, make sure you convert it to whatever country you're going to. Obviously, you're going to pay in Canadian for your transportation from an airport, but once you get there, it's another euros is not the same as Canadian dollars, for example. And expect the food not to be the same as you're used to. It's going to be different. That being said, you can always take some things with you, as long as you read the country's acceptable, what you can allow into the country and what you can't. So I've taken things like power bars with me, instant porridge. We even took ramen noodles with dehydrated vegetables because we wanted to cut down on some food costs. I take tea and coffee with me because hostels are not going to have a kettle. They will have a community kettle, maybe. I also bring my own portable kettle with me. So, these things like this, you take it with you for just in case, pack light, and go to have fun. And the next slide. And so these are some resources I've put together. As I mentioned, the Canadian Assisted Travel Society, they give out grants so that it goes towards your caregiver. You don't get the money off right away. You apply to get the money. If they say yes, you go on your vacation, you pay what you need to pay for your caregiver, and then when you come back, you have 30 days to hand in the receipts, and then they will give you a check. And they will tell you in the letter how much you are going to be getting back, as long as you have the receipts regarding your caregiver, not yourself. Because the whole idea is to even the playing field. If you're an able bodied person and you don't have a disability, we would have to pay for ourselves anyway. The hardship is we're now having to take somebody else with us because we can't go alone because we need assistance for our personal needs. And the labor costs, well, that comes out of the Cecil budget because the Cecil, the Choices for Support and Independent Living, allows you to take your caregiver out of the country. Now, I'm not sure for all regions, but in the Lower Mainland, I believe in Burnaby and Vancouver, probably Surrey, I believe it's up to 1 month now. But wherever you're from, you'd have to check your local authority for that. And of course, there are other places that you can go for help, even in Canada, for the airlines, for example, if you want to ask some questions. And of course, I should have put Ian's a blog on here too, but I didn't think of that, sorry. But anyway, yeah, so there's muscular dystrophy, spinal cord injury, BC, and I'm sure that there's even more. If you go on my website, monicagartner.ca, I even have, no, that's on CAT, sorry. The Canadian Assisted Travel Society has lots of resources as well where you can go for information. So it's a lot at your fingertips. So yeah, and that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Wow. Thank you so much, Monica. That was absolutely wonderful. So enjoyable. Gosh,
you.
it's so lovely to see that we've got a great turnout here. Wonderful.
Here I am.
There you are. Yay.
How did that happen?
Wonderful to see
caught
you
me
all.
Eating.
That's totally fine. That's perfect. Listen, we just wanted to open things up now for any questions that anybody might have.
You know,
or-
I'd like to make a comment, if I
Great.
may. Yeah. I'm a senior, and I know a lot of other seniors, that are terrified of traveling. And there's so much of what you said that not only applies to, young disability people, but seniors who are using walkers, are, have also Parkinson's, whatever, and just how to make it more peaceful for them as well to be able to travel. Yeah, so we need to open that this kind of chat up. I'm not quite sure how you would do that. We got a number of big senior organizations too. Anyway, well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Laura, for your feedback.
Right.
Yeah, you make a really good point. Absolutely. And the other thing too is that seniors are getting out and doing things, which is fantastic. We want everybody to be
Yeah.
able to feel like traveling is not just a possibility. Hopefully, it's a reality.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's an excellent point for sure. Is there anybody else? No?
Ian, Ian,
Yes.
what's your most, or Monica too, what's the most accessible country you've ever been to?
Ooh,
Mm.
I okay, Monica, do you want to go first, or do you want to think about it?
I'll give me. I'm not sure about an entire country. I can think of cities.
Well, city, wherever, like city, wherever,
Okay.
where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe how accessible this is. And I wish Canada was more accessible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to go, Ian, or do you want me to
Sure,
go?
I can go. Okay, so Canada as a whole is actually very accessible compared to other places I've traveled to. But the public transportation, particularly the railway system in Tokyo, Japan, is
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. I was blown away at how efficient it was and just how accommodating they were. Like every station they went to, they had somebody there that would assist me with purchasing my rail tickets. And then they would radio two or three other people to come with a portable ramp. They would all accompany me to the train, and then when the train doors would open, they would escort me like to the front. They would put the ramp down, and then three or four people would all hold the ramp together to ensure that it didn't slip. And they would bow as I entered and exited the plant,
Oh,
and I felt just the utmost respect.
Yeah,
holy, that's
That's-
awesome.
that's cool. I have to say, one place that was surprising to me, Australia was pretty good with their public transit.
Really?
And in addition to that, um, they had like two bus systems. One would go one way and the other one would go the other way.
Yeah.
And the inner core of Adelaide in particular, the inner core, the downtown Adelaide, the buses were free for everyone.
Oh,
Oh,
You
Wow.
didn't have to pay for that. And what was really brilliant is because they also have problems with congestion, is you could get a pass to drive downtown, but it would either be on the even days or the odd days. So some days you could go downtown, some days you were not allowed to take your vehicle. So in order to make that fair, because you have to go from one part of the city to another part of the city for work or whatever appointments, they had the inner core free. And I thought that was brilliant. And it was also wheelchair accessible. So that was great for everybody.
Mhm. I'll say.
Thank you. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, New York City is also very accessible, but there's the odd things here and there, but very, very, I mean, there's just so many tourists there now
Yeah.
that it's becoming that way, but it's fantastic. Oh my gosh, so much fun.
I think somebody's got their hand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's Scott. Hey, Scott. I think you have your hand up there.
Do, but I gotta unmute my thingy do here. Yeah, Scott Heron with spinal cord injury BC. I'm in South Vancouver Island, Victoria. Monica, I wanted to ask you on your resources slide, how old are the links that are on that resources slide? When did you put that together?
I'm not sure. Do I need to update?
Okay. Okay, I went to check our database because I wanted to make sure that the Canadian Assisted Travel Society information was on our info database. And then I realized I think that link to SCI BC or .ca info center, I think it's an older link.
Okay, I'll update that.
So yeah, it's SCI dash BC and then slash, or pardon me, SCI info slash database
Oh, okay.
is what it is now. And then that'll take you to the search page. And then if you type in accessible travel, it gives you a bunch of resources. I just noticed that the Canadian Assisted Travel Society I don't think it's in there. I didn't see it. So
Okay,
I'm gonna ask them to add that. So thank
yeah,
you
it
for
used
that
to
bit
be,
of information.
just so you know that there's been a bit of a change. I I was the chairperson for the society, but I
Huh?
stepped down for a couple of years.
Uh-oh.
So, no, it's okay. I did it on purpose. I wanted to have a break. And so it's all good. And they are revamping the website. So,
Okay.
I will let them know though that I told them I was going to include them in presentations. So I'll let them know that they need to update that pretty quick because, otherwise people are going to wonder what the heck I'm talking about and they can't find it.
Well, it's something I had never heard about until you mentioned it, and then I thought, wow, I got to make sure that this is on our database. So I looked to see if it was there. So we want to keep things
I,
current.
I am surprised because I did an interview with one of the former staff members at your organization about cats, and there should be a video about it.
Okay. Well, I'll take a closer look again
Okay.
to see if it is actually in there or I didn't notice it or whatever.
Okay.
So, but anyway, yeah, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ian, too. And Robin.
Thanks, Scott.
Excellent. I did want to mention, Monica, years ago, we were talking about the tracking device for the wheelchair, and they're absolutely wonderful, but I have had to make an update to it where nowadays I'm using an Apple AirTag to track it because there are restrictions on what types of trackers you're allowed to bring on the airplane. So Monica, I have a feeling that the one that you bought might be the older style, which is not certified. So yes,
Okay.
no, and that's a good point that to bring up is that it like just the information that you had or that I had a few years ago might not be up to date. And so it's important to do your due diligence and for every trip, contact the airline and say, hey, this is everything I plan on bringing. Is this okay? Do you foresee any issues? Because the last thing you want to do is have to worry about that the day of. Scott, I see you have your hand up again.
Yeah, Ian, do you conceal the AirPod tracker on your chair so that it can't be seen or identified right away?
Well, it's yes, because it's mounted to the base of my shipping crate. And so it would be somewhat hard to see, but I think if you're right that it would be good to make it more visible so that there aren't any surprises.
Oh, so the AirTag isn't actually on your chair itself.
No, it's in the shipping container for which the wheelchair is in. But for those that don't have a giant wooden crate, I would definitely put it tuck it into a pouch somewhere on the chair for sure.
I guess I was sort of thinking like Monica was saying, she's staying at a hostel, she's in bed, somebody comes in and says, hey, look, there's a wheelchair and takes it.
Absolutely. No,
You
that's
know,
a great idea.
wouldn't be with her in it, but it's tracking the chair itself. So,
For sure.
okay.
Oh, that's good. And I've had to use it. Like I remember I had a trip to Italy and we arrived, everything seemed fine. And then I started asking people, like, where is the wheelchair? Is it in the oversized luggage area or where do I need to go? And they had no idea what I was talking about. And so it's really handy to have a tracker that you can bring up on your phone right there and say, hey, this is where my wheelchair is located in the airport.
It's interesting because when I went to Vegas a couple of months ago, at the airport, they gave me a tag that attached to my wheelchair with a tear off.
Yeah.
And when I got onto the airplane, they took my chair down and they were going to bring it back to the side of the plane when I arrived. When they load the chair, they have to tear it off, sign it, and bring it to me in the airplane to prove that the chair has gone in the belly of the plane I'm in.
Wow.
So I don't know if they've added that to sort of alleviate that problem you just mentioned.
I hope so. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
It's a
Well,
new procedure.
Oh,
right. Yeah, I'm really excited every time I hear about these advancements to streamline the process because they are trying. I do have to give them credit. Sometimes I wish they would work a little faster and making improvements, but they're right. Even in the last 20 years that I've been traveling overseas, I've noticed that they really they care much more about our medical equipment
Yeah,
than,
I
than
agree.
they do.
probably the stories on the news have helped.
Yeah.
You know,
I
when
think
they,
so. Oh, yes, I think so too.
you know, Stephanie had quite an interesting story to say. And there's, I'm sure, and I know there's been others. And unfortunately, they've been negative, but as a result of that, people are stepping up the game, which is a really good
Yeah.
idea.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's
Well,
wonderful.
there's been really big lawsuits recently too, so they want to prevent that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so true.
Well, and I'm ecstatic to see some of these prototypes, like especially Delta Airlines, where they're working on systems where you can actually just drive your wheelchair onto the airplane. I think that will relieve so much headache and worry to be able to actually sit in your chair on the airplane. That's gonna be a game changer for many people.
Absolutely. I mean, I get such terrific backaches. I've gone from economy to economy plus, and
Yeah.
I'm still having problems with economy plus.
Wow.
Seats, especially when it comes to going to the bathroom. So, it's a game changer. I think we have somebody else asking a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah.
Great.
Well, yeah, it looks like that might be about it, guys.
Well,
There
Um,
is a hand raised.
oh, sorry. Oh, Nadira. Yes.
Hi, I was wondering where is the best place or what is a good company to buy sort of a motorized wheelchair? You know, instead of my husband or helper pushing me all the time. I've been researching and trying to find a company, and some of them are like 3005, but I'm just looking for, word of mouth references where you know that, yes, it's a good place to buy one.
Yes, excellent question. Whereabouts do you live, Nadira? What community?
I live in Calgary, Alberta.
Oh,
Okay. Yes, I must admit that's kind of out of my bailiwick, so I'm not too sure, but I most likely would just Google something like mobility devices, sales in Calgary. And just sort of start from there. I'm sure they'll have really good shops.
Yeah, I've been seeing some companies out of Ontario, and that they're offering like free shipping.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing is, once you get your wheelchair, depending on kind of what you're looking at, but you may very likely find that you need to have your chair sort of customized perfectly for you, for your body, for all that kind of thing. And that usually means hitting a like a mobility solutions type of a store, like whether that's, you know, gosh, I have something called a, let me see it here, shop rider. Just my scooter is called a shop rider. And yeah, that was just available here at one of our mobility shops in Victoria where I live. But they also sell not just scooters, but fantastic mobility, I guess you could say sort of big scooters, big wheelchairs actually. Yeah, and of course they have all sorts of other things as well, you know, for living in your home with a disability, like chairs that lift up, kind of lift you up, etc. And just anything and everything you can think of. But that was
Can
mostly, yeah, go
can I
ahead.
jump in? Nadira, did you say that you're in Calgary, Alberta?
Yes.
Okay, and you're looking to buy a wheelchair. If you were to call SCI Alberta, the one in Calgary, they should be able to give you information about local dealerships, where you would actually be able to go down and trial some equipment and things like that. So I don't know if you've tried that. Sorry, Monica's holding her hand up.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I have to go, everyone. I have to actually go back to my other job. So, it was great seeing you all, and talk again later sometime. Bye-bye for now.
Wonderful. Thanks,
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you so much. Wonderful
Monica.
presentation.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Monica.
Yeah, I also wonder, do you have an occupational therapist that you work with in Calgary, Nadira?
Not an occupational therapist, but I do have like a caseworker who I can call up and ask about all of this. Like they would refer, you know, maybe that's the person I should call. Like I have a wheelchair and I have a walker also. But I'm thinking of traveling, and the reason I was looking into buying a motorized one, it just gives a little more freedom where, you know, I can transfer into the wheelchair or the motorized one and take myself wherever I want to go instead of having to get somebody to push me around. It just gets a little bit exhausting to, you know, with your hands wheeling yourself. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Just a little more freedom and independence.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and there are quite compact power wheelchairs that you can purchase now that are more suitable for bringing with you on trips, because I know like my wheelchair weighs around 400 pounds, and it's a real pain in the butt to have to crate it up and bring it with me everywhere I go. But for me, that's the best option.
Yeah.
For you, you might be able to use something much more compact with that folds up easily. And yeah, I think Scott's suggestion of speaking with SCI Alberta and possibly maybe your case manager can refer you to an occupational therapist that could help with the seating to make sure that what you decide to purchase will actually fit you and be comfortable. I think that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, and appreciate it.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. I don't think I see any other hands up. All right, guys. Well, this is a perfect opportunity then to say thank you all very much for attending Diverse Destinations. It really was a pleasure to share our presentation with you all. And we're really pleased to see a great turnout. We've been talking a little bit amongst ourselves at TFL about possibly doing a bit more of this, and maybe even doing like a series, which we think would be wonderful. But yeah, if you guys have any feedback or anything, we'd love to hear that too. But I guess what we can do at this point is say thank you all again so much, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye now.